It's Ash from Super Videos, back for another video for The Last of Us on HBO. On this video, we're going to be taking a look at some pretty interesting and awesome behind the scenes photos from a set that they are building for filming that's going to be coming up. Now, I did do a video on this yesterday as well, but since then there's been some updates. I've figured out some stuff in terms of what they could be doing, and I wanted to do an updated video just to kind of put everything into perspective in terms of what they're actually filming. I know I predicted that they might be bringing in aspects of the story from part 2 into the first season, but it appears that that's not the case. It appears that they're actually filming the bus depot chapter from part 1 of the game. Also, there's some updates on another filming location that they're going to be at. They have started setting up something inside a comic shop, which is extremely interesting. So it looks like there's going to be some filming at a comic shop. There's a fun fact about that. I'll talk about that in the video. But the last thing we're going to cover in this video is related to how much of filming remains and when we can expect them to finish up filming. So stay tuned. We'll be right back to break it all down. Alright, as always, before we jump into this, smash that like button, subscribe to join our community, and press the bell to be notified when I upload on the channel. With that said, let's waste no more time and dive right into it. For those of you that have watched the channel before, you know this, but they've done all of the filming for The Last of Us HBO adaptation in Alberta, Canada. The majority of that being in a city called Calgary, which is the city that I live in. I've been able to visit set a few times in the past and capture a lot of pretty awesome and interesting behind the scenes photos and footage. So if you're interested to check out any of those, all of those are on the channel. This time around, I was also able to visit set and capture these photos that we're gonna cover in this video. Now, I did go to this particular set location yesterday. That was the first day of them being in that location, so it was just a lot of prep work. They hadn't really set up anything major. There were a few trucks that we talked about and some tents, but they have expanded that exponentially. Not in size, but in how much of those tents and trucks and things like that is actually inside the area where they're setting up. I do want to go through this first. I promised in my last video that I will give you guys a picture from a higher ground to kind of show you what the area that they're filming at looks like. So we can see here, they're building some sort of a set inside this parking lot. Now, if you go watch my previous video on this, you can see how different it is. I mean, there were a few tents when I went there yesterday, but this is just on a different level. So we can see a pretty clear shot of it here. I mean, there's a bunch of tents there. There is a lot of equipment that's going to be used for filming. There's a lot of debris there. There's a lot of grass and vegetation and things like that. There's a lot of props. And also we do see the Utah National Guard Emergency Response Network and the Emergency Operations trailer there. Whatever this is some sort of a camp that they had set up pretty early on in the outbreak, and it's like an emergency response camp. So it's like a mini safe zone or a mini quarantine zone if you think about it, which we definitely saw a lot of earlier on in the game, but on a much bigger scale. And obviously this is not the same thing. This is not from the quarantine zone chapter. They filmed that already a few months ago. This is not related to that. But obviously what we do notice right away is that it says Utah. They have recently been filming a lot where there's either cars with the Utah license plates or there are Utah police cars. So what we do know is that for the last maybe few weeks, they have been building sets that are supposed to be in Utah. Now, when I did this video yesterday, I did talk about how they might be bringing in aspects of part 2 into the first season, but that's definitely not the case because I wasn't really thinking about this, and it's pretty obvious, but Utah was a location in the game as well. It was actually the bus depot chapter. If you remember, Joel and Ellie went to Salt Lake City, or towards Salt Lake City. which is obviously in Utah. And the chapter for that was the bus depot chapter. So obviously that means that they're most likely filming scenes for that chapter of the game. So everything I said yesterday about them bringing in elements of the second game into the first season of the TV show is probably not accurate. Now, obviously these are supposed to be discussion videos. They're not prediction videos. So I just say what's on my mind when I'm recording. Doesn't mean that it's accurate. And obviously if I find out something new or if I'm wrong, I do an updated video and clue you guys in. Obviously we do see a pretty cool visual. I mean, this definitely looks like a emergency response camp. Any way you look at it, it's pretty amazing. Being there was pretty awesome. I said this in the previous video as well, but if you don't know what's going on and what they're doing, when you walk in, you're like, wait a minute, what's going on? So it's visually that impactful. But that's pretty much it. I mean, there's a lot of props there, as you can see, and there's a lot of tents, there's a lot of emergency response trailers. There were also some smaller tents, which could be medical tents, which is a little different from the other tents that we saw, which were brown. I think those may have been like tents for the soldiers or tents for survivors who were not injured or something like that. But other than that, not much more to add on to this. I mean, it just looks pretty awesome. There was also a banner there that said Disaster Recovery Center, and it was in both English and Spanish, I think, and it was like an American Red Cross banner. And we can see here someone that works on a building close to this area took this aerial shot of the place that we're looking at, so that's pretty cool. Obviously, comparing it to the bus depot chapter, we do see when Joel and Ellie are around the Salt Lake area, they do stumble upon a similar type of camp. It looks almost identical. So that's another huge clue. And I just actually noticed this, but there is like a Red Cross sign on top of this tent right here, which is similar to the one that we just saw with the banner and everything. So that's definitely a huge sign. And also the other thing I noticed is this looks almost identical to something that they had put in the set. I'll put an image up of that so you can check it out. So there's more and more clues. But as far as the other set location that they were preparing to film at, it was actually a comic shop right here. The first time I went there, it was impossible to take any pictures because they were just cops and the crew themselves all around. When I went there the second time, it didn't look any different than what you see here. I mean, the only difference is that this is a street view of the comic shop, which is called Phoenix Comics. But obviously, the fact that they're filming at a comic shop is interesting because if you remember, there were tons of times when Joel pointed out comics that he found to Ellie so she could read it. So I'm assuming that there's going to be some sort of a similar vibe as far as what they're going to be doing at the comic shop. Now, as far as the fun fact for you guys, this is actually the comic shop that I go to all the time to buy my Walking Dead comics. This was pretty cool. I mean, it's cool that they're filming in Calgary and I'm in Calgary, but it's even cooler that they are filming inside the comic shop that I go to. That's all I wanted to talk about. One final thing as far as how much of filming remains. They're actually going to be in Alberta and obviously in Calgary mostly until June 10th, which is definitely around the corner. So they're not going to be here much longer. And I feel like at this point, they have shot the biggest and the most important parts of the story. And at this point, they're just filming some of the smaller stories and smaller moments that they didn't really have time to film or that they left until the end. But I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, smash that like button, subscribe to join our community, and press the bell to be notified when I upload on the channel. That's it for this video. See you next time for another super video.